Hi, and welcome to this discussion from Maverick Publishing Consultants. This is the first in an occasional series. We're still at the beginning of 2026, so we're going to start the year with a discussion of some current publishing trends because it's always fun to look at where we've just been and where we're heading off to next. For the few people who don't know us, let's begin with some introductions. Jayne, could you begin by introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Jayne Marks. I am newly the CEO of Maverick Publishing Consultants, but I'm also a consultant, do a lot of work with various clients of ours as well, and work a lot on a day-to-day basis with clients.
Fantastic, thank you. And Becky, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Becky Moakes, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Maverick Publishing Consultants. And my main focus really is around problem solving, so helping organisations find the right solutions to their challenges.
Fantastic, thank you. And for people who haven't met me, my name's Megan. I work in marketing for Maverick, and I'm just going to be acting today as the host and question asker of the session. So let's get started. So at the end of 2025, then, Jayne, what were publishers talking to us about, and what were some of their main concerns?
I think we all recognise that 2025 was quite an up and down year. There were a lot of questions. There were a lot of uncertainties about different areas, policies with respect to open access or not, or green or whatever it might be. So quite a bit of turmoil. Plus the fact that I think we saw in the market, we saw different countries going or different regions going in different directions. So Europe obviously is focused on building their repository and having content put in there. China is doing something different. The US, their policy has become perhaps less clear. So I think what we're hearing from clients last year is they're really starting to rethink their strategy, whereas, obviously business models were apparently quite clear at the beginning of last year. By the end of last year, less clear. So I think that's my main takeaway, is people trying to get their heads around really what does this mean for how they go forward.
Fantastic. Becky, anything else that people were chatting to you about at the end of 2025?
Yeah, so from a technology and content perspective, we're seeing people looking at the legacy systems, really starting to consider where the best investment is for them in terms of upgrading or perhaps finding new systems, looking at workflows, things like that. So people are starting to realize they have to modernize if they want to keep up with the pace of change that we're currently seeing across the scholarly communication ecosystem. But I also think there's a more fundamental question that we're seeing, which is how do they stay relevant? What is their place within scholarly communication with all the things that we're seeing change, especially with AI technologies, and the shift perhaps in certain product developments that we're seeing as well around that.
Fantastic, thank you. And in terms of revenue and costs, which we all know are the front of mind for all the commercial organisations that we work with, I think it's fair to say that 2025 wasn't the easiest of years. Jayne, what do you
No.
think? Where do you think people are in terms of just that very basic business question?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging time, and I would say it's not just commercial organizations either. I mean, any organization, whether it's for profit or not for profit, has to cover costs. And I think what we're seeing is that revenue has become perhaps flatter. I mean, it has to, some of our clients have seen revenue declining, others have seen it very much flattening off. But of course, costs don't stand still. And what we're seeing is there are certain areas that publishers now have to invest in that they haven't done before, such as research integrity, tools, people, those kinds of things. So we're seeing some pressures, I would say, and particularly amongst sort of mid-sized publishers, it's becoming a more of a challenging place, I think.
Fantastic, thank you. I think from there I might move on to ask, what do things look like for societies and associations at the moment who make up some of those mid-sized publishers?
Yes, and I think they're very much in the same boat, because a number of societies for some time have had guaranteed incomes coming in from their publisher. That has become perhaps less solid. And, you know, as they're coming into thinking about their renewal with their publisher, we're seeing a lot of societies and associations thinking much further ahead now, and maybe doing a business review, perhaps even wider than just their journal publishing or their book publishing, but looking more broadly at, you know, their membership channels, their, you know, do they have print products still they send to members? Those things are now starting to cost them money instead of make them money. So there's a lot of moving parts, I think, within those societies and associations, opportunities for growing revenue, perhaps by using content in new and different ways. So a lot more sort of whole business reviews, if you like, of where are they going, and how can they, you know, as Becky said earlier, how can they stay relevant? And you know, I think from Becky can probably talk more about some of their technology challenges as well. So
Yeah, Becky, what would your perspective
Yeah, no,
be?
absolutely. I think it really depends on the size of the society and association. So we are seeing a lot of offshoring. We're seeing them using third-party vendors to take up some of the pressures that perhaps they were having internally. I also think that societies and associations have a real reckoning at the moment, especially with the advent of AI, Gen AI, things like that. They can take away their usage, they can take away their members if they're finding resources and information elsewhere. And I do think societies and associations perhaps have a little bit of a battle on their hand there as they start to recognize this new world that we're operating in. And also societies and associations often are wedded to quite dated systems and processes and workflows. And that's just because, you know, organically they get embedded and they grow and they develop. But that can also constrain them in terms of if they're looking for diversification, if they've got constraints around those capabilities, it can perhaps narrow their options in terms of perhaps spreading some of that risk.
Fantastic, thank you. And we touched very briefly on AI there, Becky. I'm going to ask you this question first. I feel it's in your wheelhouse, but I mean, everybody everywhere is discussing AI at the moment from the publisher perspective and you know, the wider scientific field perspective. What do you think we're going to be seeing sort of maybe in the shorter term rather than the long term? Because it's harder to know what might happen in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think we are seeing a strategic shift within our organizations. So last year and in 2024, we saw lots of experimentation, but perhaps not enough strategic oversight around where the value is in terms of either integrating AI technologies within your workflows or perhaps on your front end products as well. So I do think that people are perhaps taking a bit of a step back and starting to really look and focus in on those business segments to try and understand where they're going to have the you know, the most benefit for them. But I also do think that you know, we are also recognizing that the way that researchers and our users are interacting and searching or discovering content is obviously shifting with generative AI. So we are seeing people starting to look at things like generative engine optimization. Can their content still be found with the advent potentially of zero clicks and the AI summaries? How do we ensure that our content is still surfaced? How do we ensure that the readers come back to our platforms? And I think those are some of the key questions that we're going to see, as well as we know that AI technologies aren't perhaps the most environmentally friendly. And so I think people have a reckoning as to how they match that up to their SDGs and other policies that they have going on in all their organizations. And there's also a human element around this. How do you manage these sorts of major changes within your organizations? How do you ensure that everyone's skilled up? And then how do we support our communities? How do we provide librarians and our researchers with advice and guidance on perhaps the best AI technologies and things that you should be looking out for? So ethics, I think, are going to become a major factor here, but also security and research security around AI technologies.
Fantastic. I think it's a comprehensive answer. Jayne, do you have anything to add to that in terms of your perspective from kind of the strategic point of view?
Yeah, I was just thinking about some of the things that Becky was saying there, and a couple of the things that I'm seeing is a number of organizations who perhaps have in-house staff who've been doing a lot of more administrative tasks. A lot of things in-house that perhaps the very big publishers have either automated or moved out of house some time ago. There's still quite a lot of hands-on work going on. But you can use some of these AI tools to actually shift some of the, day-to-day admin work. Things like submission checking, is the manuscript all there? Are there all the figures? Have they complied with all the policies? Those kinds of things can be automated. So then what do you do with the people? But there's still so much that you need to add to any kind of AI system to actually bring that human element. Like, you can have any number of AI tools to help you with your research integrity checking, but at some point, something will have to come back to a human being to say, is this a fake paper? Is this a problem, or is it not a problem? And then what do you do about it? And that takes people. So I think what we're seeing is we're seeing that shift from perhaps more straightforward administrative tasks to more value-added tasks. And I think we'll see more of that happening as time goes on. And I think that will need training and upskilling and some amount of change management for some of these organizations where perhaps some of these people have been doing the same thing for a very long time.
That's really interesting. Thank you. I think that the relationship between humans and AI is clearly a societal as well as a work kind of question at the moment. Thank you very much. That provided some really interesting insight just at the beginning of 2026. I've realised that, of course, we didn't discuss how we're going to bring this to a close, but Maverick Publishing Consultants is both old and new. So I wondered if you wanted to just let people know how they can get in touch with us now that our organisation has a new website and things like that. Jayne.
Yes, certainly. So just a quick update on where we are. We still have the same group of consultants we had before. We work in very much the same way. We do have a new website. It is www.maverickpublishingconsultants.com, and you can use info@maverickpublishingconsultants.com to get to any of us, or you can just use our first name and maverickpublishingconsultants.com. So do go and check us out on LinkedIn. You can find us, any of the three of us, either individually, or you can find Maverick Publishing Consultants on LinkedIn, and get in touch with us that way.
Fantastic. And in the grand tradition of YouTube, we will of course add all those links to the description below.